Well, good morning everybody. This is DIY Dave, and today we are going to be replacing one of the parking sensors on the front of this 2015 Lexus ES350. Had a little bit of bumper damage, and we're going to investigate it, get that repaired. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. Okay, so at first glance, just at a distance, you don't really notice anything on this ES350. It looks like it's in fine shape. But what happened a couple of months ago, I was out running some errands, and as I was going down the street, I was being a little bit careless and misjudged the distance between myself and a car in front of me and barely tapped their rear bumper. Now, nobody was hurt. This was a low impact accident. The airbags didn't deploy. There was no injury, anything like that. In fact, the gentleman I hit looked at his car and said, "Dude, there's nothing wrong with my car. I'm good. See you later," and he left. The one thing that did happen is that when I got back in my car, I noticed, we'll illustrate that here. If I start her up and I turn on the parking sensors,
I like that.
we get the immediate alert, and it says that all 6 parking sensors are incommunicado, or at least it can't talk with them. Now, I overcame that by just turning that off, and the light goes away, and the car is still perfectly drivable, no problem. But clearly, one of the sensors got crunched. Now, what I'll do is I'll show you up front here. If you look a little bit more closely, where the damage was, the front bumper here made contact with the other car right up in here. So I think it was fairly safe to assume that either this sensor or that sensor is what was damaged. But if you look up a little bit more closely, you'll notice that this part of the trim is cracked. And that's why we're going to have to replace it. I think this is just being held in either by a clip behind the bumper or by just friction, and eventually that's going to fall out. So we're going to replace that trim. We're going to do that in another video. But I suspect this one is the actual sensor that got crunched and is no longer functioning. So we're going to confirm that by reading the scan tool data, the stored code data out of the computer, and verify that that's the sensor, and then we're going to replace it. Okay, so we're going to load up the Think Diag here. We're going to load up the Think Diag here. I've got this loaded up onto my phone. And I'll tell you what, just as an aside, the Think Diag DIY tool, it ranges between $65 and $100, give or take, depending on where you get it. Sometimes there are promotional coupons for it. This is now my do-it-yourselfer OBD reader of choice. It actually has bidirectional capability, some bidirectional capability. If you've seen some of my other videos, you know that I've used the Autel AP200. I have kind of gotten away from using it because they have really changed a lot of the functionality away from the basic tool. They charge for a lot of incremental things. Scan tool, now in fairness, the Think Diag does charge for some things, but it seems to me that the Autel side has gotten a lot heavier on charging for just about every microscopic capability, and I find it slower, and just don't care for it as much as the Think Diag. The Think Diag has been really effective, and I don't get any paid, I don't get anything for endorsing it. I just have a recommendation. I bought it myself and I really like it. So let's try the intuitive parking assist, but that's usually the automatic. Let's read fault code. Aha! There we go. Description: front left center sensor. It's a current code C1AE2. C1A left front left center sensor state is current. This is a current code, and it's also a history code. So that tells us right away that it is, with the driver's side being the left, we now go to the left center sensor, that guy right there, and it's got a little crunch on it. That's the one we need to replace, and that's the one we've got. It's worth noting that the same part number actually goes here, 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 and here. I originally tried to do this by just accessing the sensor underneath by taking away some of the lower panels, but this is actually right in front of the front core support, so you have to take the bumper off to do this. So we're going to have to remove this bumper, and we'll go get the part and we'll start working on it. Okay, we got the hood on the car raised. Now, to remove this bumper, we got to remove some clips. Looks like we need to remove this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy right here, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 clips that hold this plastic cover on. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure that you really even have to remove these, because this bumper only goes back with clips to this distance. So I may see if I can get away with just removing these clips. Now, there are some other on the side here. Now, the front clips that connect the front bumper are just this guy right here. Well, this guy is already loose from where I bumped it. Just popped it loose. So that's already loose and will probably just pull off like that. So that part's already gone. And then we'll come over here to this side and we find the same thing. This is already popped off. So this is already separated. Now, the other part is that there are a handful of, I believe, 10mm bolts right here. Here, and there's one over there, and I think there may be one more over here. Yeah, right here. There's at least 1, 2, 3, and possibly another one hiding back here. We need to get these guys off, and that should allow us to release the front bumper. So it shouldn't take more than a 10mm socket and a very thin blade screwdriver to pop those push button tabs loose. So I'll get a screwdriver and a 10mm socket, and we'll see if we can get this off. Okay, now I am going to try to do this one-handed. I don't know how successful I'll be at it, but I'm going to try. Now I'm just noticing that that's a little clip right there that we're probably going to have to remove. I can't see that thing. I can't see that coming out without removing those. Let's just start. I don't think you need to remove. I don't think the more I look at that, I don't think you need to remove that to get this bumper out. The only thing holding this bumper in are going to be clips here. Let's just start with this one. There's that. Oh, that just popped right out. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go grab a box so I don't lose these things. Now, one thing I will tell you, I found a deal on Amazon where I bought a whole slew of these plastic connectors and plugs. Some of these are Toyota specific, some are not, and I've got another whole bag of them here because the only 2 cars we have are both Toyotas, and if I do any work on them, they're going to be Toyota clips. If you do happen to have the occasion to work on Toyotas a lot, just as a DIYer or because you like to putter on other people's cars and they happen to be Toyotas, I would encourage you to look at getting these clips, because a package of anywhere from 50 to 100 mixed assortments are like $10, or even cheaper probably if you look around even more. But anyway, we're going to get a tool tray to collect these little things so we don't lose them, even though we've got the spares. Okay, we have obtained a parts tray, so anything that pops loose we can keep a hold of it. So we will. Now I have absolutely no help filming this. I'm going to have to do this one-handed. I will try as best I can to do this one-handed, and I'll try to keep things in focus. But I can't make any promises. I'll do the best I can. But one-handed photography is a challenge. I don't know if you watch any other more hardcore automotive channels, but Ivan of Pine Hollow Auto Diagnostics does all of his one-handed or with I guess a GoPro attached to his Ford. Don't have a GoPro. I've got a wide-angle camera that I've never really used for one of these videos, but he does a lot of one-handed video. I don't know how he does it. It's an extreme challenge, to say the least. So now I've removed these front clips Yeah, and I think this one's going to have to come off too. So I originally said that it would take 9. Oh, that just popped right out. Oh, okay. Well, I basically just ripped it through the material. I didn't want to do that. So we'll be more careful over here on this side. There we go. That's much better, I think. There. Haha. Okay. So now if we look, aha. So underneath here, there is another clip. There's a little surprise. So that tells us something else we've got to do. So we need to take this guy. We'll pop this guy off. Use that tray to keep this down. I can pop this open. Aha! There we go. Much better. Now we'll come over here, armed with our new knowledge. There must be one over here, and sure enough there is. So we will take our parts tray, put it down like that, and we will pop this one loose as well. Perfect. There. So now, it sure feels like there's something else holding this down. Oh. Okay. Further investigation has revealed still more clips. One right underneath here, underneath this cover, which means there's almost certainly a corresponding one over here under there. So we may end up having to take this whole front cover off after all. So we'll go ahead and remove these other clips and just take this top cover off. Okay, I'm a little slow. The intent for these particular buttons, you just push them down and that releases them. I'm a little slow, but hey, you know, that's how you learn. Those of you who may already know how to do this part may be laughing at me, and I don't blame you. I'd probably be laughing at me too, but anything that's loose, we're now able to pop these things out. We'll just put those back when we put the cover back on. So now, this part is free and comes loose. There. Now we're in business. So, on this front cover, we now see to remove this bumper, we've got this clip, and it looks like that clip. And that looks like it's about all. And the parking sensor that we're ultimately going to be replacing is right here, right in front of this reinforcement bar right here. Okay, so I think if we release this guy right here, and this guy right here, we're in business. Okay, so the lesson learned, understand how the little button releases are supposed to work. When I read push button releases, I thought, or push button fasteners, I just thought that they meant that was how you secured them. You pushed them down and they fastened. I didn't realize you pushed them down to release them, but live and learn. So here's some more. There's another one right here. And possibly even right there to get this thing off. No, that's not connected to this, I don't think. So let's pop this guy off. There we go. Okay, we'll now assess how much closer we are than we were a few minutes ago. Okay, just discovered that we have another clip right here that needs to be taken out. So we need to take this one out as well. There we go. All right, there's that. Now, this front top is now completely loose. So now we can go over here to the side. Okay, I just pulled the little pin out of that that connector right there. I think part of that has come loose, so we'll replace that. I think it may have been broken, but I can replace that. I think that's one of the spares I have. So that's already loose. I did the same thing on the other side, and now it's time to go underneath and get the 10mm bolts that hold on the shield protectors, the splash shields from the bottom that should free up all the connectors to the bumper. It says here. So let's start right over here, see if we can find one. Let's see. There's one right here. There's not one before then anywhere. I don't feel that. Looks like the first one to me. Okay. So we're gonna okay, that's one. Definitely feels a little looser, but it still feels like something might be holding us up right here, and I'm not sure what. Stand by. Found it. Little 10mm bolt that I think holds in right here. So let's get that guy. If you can see that right there from my finger. There it is. That little 10mm bolt right there needs to come out. So I'll spin that out, be right back. Okay, that did the trick. Spinning this one out. This side is now very loose, I think. Barring other unforeseen clips or connectors that I don't know about, I believe this side is as free as I can get it. So let's go to the other side and take out, there's I think one other 10mm toward the center, actually two on complementary sides, and then there's the two others on the opposite side. So let's go take care of those. Okay, just to review, we got the 2 bolts off of that side. There are 2 bolts off of that side. We got those out, and then there are 2 more. One right here, and then one right here. They're just symmetric on either side. Again, 10mm. So there's a total of 6 bolts underneath here that have to be taken out that release this splash shield from the bracket that lets you pull out this as a unit. So go ahead and pull those guys out. There we go. See if we can go 2 for 2. Bingo. Okay. Now, before I think the bumper is free. At least I believe it is. What I want to do is, I don't know how much spare wire is in the wiring harness that connects these sensors. I don't know if I can just afford to take the bumper and try to just let it dangle. I don't want to risk damaging it. Or ripping out any of the connectors. So since I don't know that, I'm going to go get a couple of driving ramps, and as I pull this bumper off, I'm going to try to rest the bumper on those ramps to avoid letting it fall. Maybe I don't need it, I don't know, but we're going to try that just to be sure. So I'll go get those, and we'll see if we can start pulling this off, or see if we have other things that we have to reconnect. Okay, I've put the camera on a tripod. I'm going to start on this side to see if I can work this loose, or tell if there's any resistance from maybe a connector that I have not yet disconnected. There's no way I can move this gently enough and run the can at the same time, so I'll try to do as much of this as I can and show you what I can. We'll just give it the best shot we can. So, and I may jump over to the other side, and again, I've got these jack stands, or driving ramps. I don't intend to drive the car on the ramps. I'm just going to use these to balance the weight of this to make sure it doesn't fall. So let's give this a try. Okay, there is something, I can tell already, there's definitely something up here connecting this right here. It's loose down here, it is not loose up here. So there's still something I got to figure out that's connecting. So let's take a look. Oh, wow, okay. Yep, definitely an unexpected development. Right here, there is a connector. Make sure that's in shot. Hang on. It's in a shadow. Okay, right there. That little connector right there has, I believe, a 10mm bolt. That's got to come loose. That's what's holding it together. Well, it turns out this bolt is in fact 10mm. It's just that I couldn't get my driver in there with the head, so I got an extension on the end of my driver here, and we'll see if we can reach it that way. Aha! There we go. Now let's see if that improves our access to this bumper. Oh man, there is still something binding this guy up, guys, and I don't know what it is. Okay, I finally got this out. This is a little angled or beveled sensor clip that basically I just had to pry loose. It kind of looks like the top of an old Elmer's glue bottle. It's just a little snap fitting, and these little edges, when you press in, it slides back out. It didn't break, so we should be able to replace that when we put it all back together. So got a little scared there because I was afraid there might have been some sort of interconnect in there. I just didn't know how to handle it and was concerned about breaking it. But we got it loose and just pried it, a little squeeze connect, and then with a little prying tool like a screwdriver, and I was able to pop it loose. So no harm, everything's good. Got to go do the same thing on the other side. Well, in the process of trying to figure out what else was binding in there, I just gave this a gentle tug and it popped loose. Hopefully nothing broke, but I don't think it did. It's just a matter of a little pop connector that slid back into place. So this side of the bumper is free. I'm going to go take the connector that this connector came out of, well, yeah, it's a connector. It's a little plastic white connector that I showed in the previous clip. Take that out and then pop this loose, and I think we're ready to pull this thing out. Okay, one thing I noticed, I'm over here on the right side, this was already loose, and I was getting ready to get this white clip loose from this side, but then I noticed there's a little button fastener right here that was not on the other side, and I think it had just popped out. Possibly had popped out when I tapped the other car, not sure. Doesn't really matter, but I've got a tool. We'll just pop that connector out, and then we'll access that white fastener and pop it loose with the 10mm bolt, just like I did on the other side. So we'll pop that loose and be back shortly. Okay, we got the other clip loose. All we really had to do is gently put a little prying tool right here and separate gently, and it popped right loose. And that's a little clip. So if we do this like we did the other side, we should be able to just gently pull here and it will pop right loose and we're free. So now what we're going to start doing is we're going to start gently working around the bumper, just like we did before. We're going to start pulling this thing off very gently, very cautiously. If we feel resistance, that there's some other connector that we haven't taken into account, we'll be careful because we don't want to shatter the bumper. Okay, we finally figured out the last hang-up, and it was really difficult to find. It was clearly binding somewhere around the base of the headlight, and what I was able to tell him, there was just absolutely no way I could film it. I got inside the wheel well, and there are two clips that fit in on top of the headlight here. And once I put a little pry in there, I think the way this is designed, it's designed to be very easy to push in. I think it'll click right back in when we put it back, but getting it out is not it is not trivial. I had to work my a little wedging tool in there from the back side and just put a little bit of down pressure, and then it popped right loose. Very, very unexpected and not predicted. So if you have to remove a front bumper like this, be aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and roll this ramp under here to support this bumper so we don't put too much more flexing on it than we absolutely have to. Okay, we are so close. We are one clip inside here, this one retaining clip away from getting this thing released. I'm just going to have to keep wiggling. There's no magic that I'm doing here. I'm just carefully moving it back and forth until it releases. So I will go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and cut this off because I can't flex it and hold the camera at the same time. And we'll just see if we can't get it off. I guess I could go ahead and put it on the tripod here. But this is more of a bear than I expected. I honestly did not expect removing this bumper to be quite this hairy, but you don't know things until you try them, right? See if we can. Got it. Whew. Okay. And now we can see our parking sensor. There is our parking module right there. That is the parking sensor. I think we just remove those two clips and replace it with the new one, and we're done. All that work just to get that little parking sensor. Well, let's go get the parking sensor and replace it. I think rather than trying to hack blindly at getting that sensor out, I'm going to study the new one so I can see how it's supposed to go in and what is or isn't part of the connector. There's the connector. It's a 2-wire connector. It clips in, so it looks like if you release those, it would pop out this way. That's how I would assess it. I don't see anything that would be part of the fastening mechanism this way. Okay. So if we compare that, that seems to me that we should be able to disconnect it. Oh, it's part of these little mounting clips. There's a mounting clip right here and underneath it, and I'm betting you've got to figure out a way to get it out of that mounting clip. That makes sense. Okay, let me do a little bit more fiddling and see if we can get this out. I tried to get an angle where I could show this to you, where I could have both hands free, and it just wouldn't work. But I finally got this loose. You take these two tangs right here, pull them back, and then lift it up, and that takes it off of the connector. And that is the old parking sensor. And now you just got to disconnect the connector here and then replace it with the new one and put it back. So let's see if we can do that. On pretty snug. Don't want to rip out those wires for darn sure. I don't see, there's no connector or wedging that you put in there. Again, this may be a two-handed thing. Bear with me, folks. Okay, what I could not tell the way I was holding it, the connector was retained by a little pinch clip right there on the edge. You pinch that in on the connector and it came right out. I just couldn't do it with one hand. But it's really simple, so now I'm just going to plug in the new connector, put it back together, and we're going to be done. Okay, we got the new connector, the new sensor. There is the connector. And make sure that we do this on the side with the tang, and that is that side, and the hole is going to go this way, so I can get oh, it was this way. Okay. Good. See if we can do an Ivan Pine Hollow one-handed connector here. It's not easy, folks. Believe me. Especially for someone who's right-handed and I'm using the right hand to run the camera. Ha-ha! Got it. Now, we should be able to just slide that in. Whoops. Wrong way. Folks, that's in. That is our new parking sensor. It is connected. I suppose I can try to turn on the parking sensor in the car, but I don't know if the fact that the bumper is disconnected will change the calibration of the sensors this much, because it's, you know, several inches out of place. But what the heck, that would be the worst it could do is give us a negative that might not be accurate until, or confirmable until we get the whole thing reassembled. But let's give it a try. And we will folks, there's our parking symbol. The parking light is on, our sonar is working, and we have no codes, no errors, other than a notice that the hood is open. This is a perfect fix. All we've got to do now is reassemble the bumper. Start reversing the process, because now we're done. We're going to put the bumper back together, reassemble the clips, and reassemble the shield, the splash shields at the bottom, and I think we're going to be done. So, the last part of disassembling the bumper was getting this part over this edge clip right here, and there are two little inserts that ride in that clip. And I think once we get that inserted in there, then we can focus on getting the side tangs reconnected and clipped back in, and then we can do the 6 10mm bolts across the bottom, and then there are the two button fasteners on either side, and then the top cover, and we'll be done. So let's go ahead and we'll just start with this side because we're right here. See if we can just slide this in where it belongs. Perfect. Just as I expected. It snaps right back into place, right where it belongs. Okay, now we just do the same thing to this side. Perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect. Folks, we are 90% of the way home. Okay, so now we're just back to reconnecting this little side tang on the edge. It's a little tapered connector. There's one on each side. Just sliding that back in, and it receives a screw. It goes in at an angle. Ah, it's already in. Done. And we need a replacement button fastener there. I should have one of those. Sure enough, have a brand new one right here. So we're just gonna line this guy up. There. That is as good as she's gonna get. Now we have a missing fastener right there. We have a little missing connector right here. I'll see if I have a replacement for that one. Well, amazingly enough, in my multitude of clips and Toyota fasteners that I have in my garage, I do not have a replacement for that half turn. That actually is a slotted half turn retainer screw fitting. So I'm going to have to do that and pick that up later. This side is secure though. I put the replacement button fastener there. So we're going to shift on, we're going to leave that open for now, and we're going to go ahead and shift toward replacing the top cover now, because the bumper the bumper is secure. We've got to replace the 10mm bolts underneath on the splash shields, and we'll go ahead and get the top cover replaced. Okay, I've replaced the two bumper fastener clips here, and there was one hidden under here, one on each side, little button fasteners. That secures the top part of the bumper. So now I'm just going to replace the bumper, this top cover. And that's just a series of these two long hood pads, connectors, and then more button fasteners. And that's just really the reverse. Here, 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 all across. That's just the reverse of what we did when we put it together. So I don't think there's really any benefit in filming that. So I'm going to go ahead and put those fasteners back in real quick. Okay, we've got all the little button fasteners replaced, put back into place. All the holes are filled. Double check, didn't find any extra holes, but I ended up with one extra button fastener, and I don't know where it goes. I've checked all the holes. I don't know where this one belongs. It came from somewhere, but I don't know where. And I've rechecked all the holes on this top cover, so I just don't know where it goes. And I checked, there were 4 holes, 2 on this side, 2 on this side, and those are plugged up. So isn't it always the case? You end up with one extra bolt. This cover is down securely, so I'm not too concerned about it. All we're going to do now is we're going to take these 10mm bolts, there are 6 of them, and we're going to replace the bumper shield underneath, and that's going to essentially be it. So we'll get those done and we'll wrap this up. Oh, and also, I mentioned that I did not have a replacement for that fastener. Well, it turns out I found that in my parts container where I was keeping all my spare screws. I found it in there, popped it in, rotated it, and that's now nice and tight. So that part is resolved. All right, one caveat as you're reassembling and putting that bumper back on. Make sure that the splash shields are tucked underneath the frame of the bumper, because otherwise you're going to have to pull the bumper back off or flex these things really severely to get them to go back underneath the lip. So I'm going to try to flex these things in or get underneath and take it apart from the other side, take the bolts out from the back end and slide it back, because I don't want to take the bumper back off. But that's a little lesson learned. Don't do what I did. Make sure those splash shields are in place within the front bumper cover before you put all your bolts back. Well, folks, we've got all 6 bolts underneath the shields here. They're all back in place where they belong, nice and snug. Everything fits well. We got the shields tucked in under the bumper, so don't make that mistake. I had to wrestle with it, but I got it snapped back in, no problem. All of these are in place. We're done. Let's take a sneak peek and kind of summarize what we've done. I tell you what, this was a fun project. Once I studied the wiring diagrams, I was a little concerned that these sensors were wired up in series, and that one might indicate that if one was broken, it might hide one that was downstream was broken. But the wiring diagram indicated that all of the sensors are wired independently back to the corresponding module. It was gratifying to watch that parking sensor work. As a matter of fact, that one sonar, why don't we run to the car one more time, verify that this is good, and we'll wrap this up. Parking light is on. We're good to go, folks. This worked. The repair works, and we were able to replace that parking sensor with really no problem. It was a much bigger hassle getting the bumper off than it was to replace the sensor. The sensor was just 2 clips and a connector that was just had to find the right side where the tang was. Folks, if you like our videos, we appreciate you to make a comment, ask your questions, make your observations. If you think I did something stupid or clumsy, please make a comment. It doesn't bother me. We're all here to share information. If you find yourself in the need of having to replace a parking sonar, you don't have to go to the dealer. You don't have to run and have someone else do it for you for several $100s. If you're willing to buy the part, invest a little elbow grease, you can do it yourself. That's going to wrap up this video. We've replaced this parking sensor. Thanks for watching. Have a blessed day. And if it's worth doing it all, it's worth doing yourself. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.